Hi, I'm Mary Poplin with Boris Effects. In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how I used Mocha Pro in combination with After Effects and Photoshop to replace the background in this shot with a more dynamic matte painting. I used Mocha Pro multiple times. I used the planar tracking for the difficult movement of the shot, and then I used the MegaPlate module to create a larger than raster backplate for the sky, and Magnetic Spline tools to speed up some roto work. I used MegaPlates for this shot instead of creating a matte painting from scratch because I wanted to know where to place the mountains in the background and how to properly scale the clouds and set. I'm going to show you how to do this in Adobe After Effects, but you can do this in any host that supports Mocha Pro. It's easier if you do this in a compositing package rather than an editing package. The first thing we're going to do is apply Mocha to our footage. Notice that our footage is trimmed to the size of our comp. You don't want to be working on footage that is several thousand frames long. Treat a shot like a contained problem to solve, and you'll have a lot easier time. I'm going to go to Effect, Boris Effects Mocha, and Mocha Pro, and apply Mocha Pro to my shot. Once I launch Mocha Pro, Mocha will read from my timeline, meaning it takes the footage directly from After Effects and loads it into the Mocha Pro plugin. Let's play this and try to find a good place to track. If you look, you can see that we've got ships in the foreground and a lot of motion blur and zooming in and out in our shot. This is kind of a problem because you want to make sure in Mocha that you track from areas of the largest amount of detail to the least amount of detail. Well, luckily, I actually have some pretty good details to track. I'm going to use my X-Spline tool, and I'm going to start tracking this mountain here. I can use the Add to X-Spline tool and anchor some of the ground over here. Now I can use this to track the background. We'll call this BG Track. And we will track translation, scale, and rotation only. When I hit Track Backwards, I can turn my Surface tool on to make sure that my track is correct. Notice how I avoided the ship rope to make sure that it didn't interrupt my mountain track. And since we've tracked from areas of the most detail to least detail, even when we zoomed out, we were still able to keep a pretty accurate track. Once my track is complete, I can use this BG track to drive other roto shapes. In this case, we're going to find the most zoomed out part of our shot, and we'll draw a big shape for our background. We'll call this matte painting, and we're going to link it to our BG track. I'll correct some of our roto, and now I can use this as my MegaPlate template. I'll click on my matte painting layer and head over to MegaPlates. Selecting a frame that's nice and central, we'll hit the render button, and our default settings should work just fine. Now Mocha has created a MegaPlate that I can paint. Let's hit Create, and we can save our MegaPlate. Let's save and close Mocha. And for good measure, let's save our After Effects file. And we're going to open Photoshop. Once inside of Photoshop, I can start cleaning up this painting. I can use the Clone tool to extend the mountain. This clip is HD resolution. The MegaPlate process uses the planar tracking data and the available pixels to generate a larger than raster frame that I can use for matte painting. This is handy because everything stays the proper resolution. MegaPlates were not strictly necessary for this shot, but they helped considerably for layout. If you want to learn more in depth about MegaPlates, you can check out the video in the description. The ocean doesn't have to be perfect. Neither does the sky, because I'm going to be doing a lot of painting. We can use content-aware fill to get rid of as much as possible. And if that doesn't look very nice, we can always come in with a straight-up paintbrush and paint everything out. For small pieces to remove, like this rope, Content-aware fill should give much better results. And where results are less than perfect, we can always just paint. I can use the smudge tool to work on these hills back here. It's not important that it be perfect, but it is important that there be no more ships. Once I've completed my base painting, I can start painting on top. In this case, I'm going to start putting some clouds in. I can even start to blend clouds back into my scene. So I can make this matte painting as complex or as simple as I'd like. Ultimately, I ended up erasing the ocean entirely and just making a matte painting that ended up looking like this. We're going to flatten this image. And the reason I ultimately decided to get rid of everything, including the mountain, the ocean, and the ships, was because this will blend back in better in my comp. Back in After Effects, I'll import my matte painting and drag it into my comp. If you've watched my other tutorials, then you know that you can apply a corner pin to this and pre-comp your MegaPlate and make everything fit together instead of After Effects, but I actually want to use the Mocha Pro insert module for this. And the reason I want to do that is because I can see right in my screen how this is going to blend together. So under Module Renders, I'm going to select Insert Layer, MegaPlate. I'm going to select Insert, Cutout. I'm going to duplicate the layers so that I have a nice clean background that I can remove Mocha Pro from and then keep my Mocha Pro plugin on the top layer. I'm going to launch Mocha. I'm going to select my matte painting layer and use my insert clip set to my insert layer to bring my matte painting back into the scene. Let's use our surface tool to align our matte painting properly into our scene. If I go to my insert module, I can actually use my blending modes to see how this is going to blend back into my scene. Now that looks about right. Under my masks, I can use my matte for matte painting and mask my insert. I can even use the Uber key and feather this right back into my scene, using the Pick Edge tool to blend everything back in. Now when I save and close Mocha and check the Render checkbox and use Insert Composite, I can see my blending mode rendered right back into my scene. If I use Insert Cutout, I'll have to apply the blending mode inside of After Effects. And the results look the same. I can also use the Motion Blur checkbox in the Insert module to apply motion blur to my matte painting. So now when I save and close, motion blur gets applied to my matte painting as well. Now there are some problems here. I need to be able to mask out my ship. If I duplicate my bottom layer and bring it to the top, I can see there's a lot of keyable information here. I'm going to use BCC Primat Studio to pull a quick key. This doesn't need to be a perfect solution, and a Luma key with some edge feathering would also do the job in this case. But I still need to worry about the mountain definition and a little bit of details here around the mist. So let's use my Magnetic Spline tool and define my mountains a little bit. And let's link it to our BG track. Now we can save and close, and we can apply our matte. We can add some feathering, and our blending is starting to look pretty good. To really sell the effect, I'm going to add some birds as a moving element that I brought back in to our scene using a corner pin right out of Mocha. And I'm also going to adjust the color by using a fast film process from the Continuum tools. To add a final touch, I used Sapphire's chromatic aberrations to produce a subtle but more realistic film look to the composite. So here's our before, and here's our after. Now, obviously, I didn't show you every single nitty-gritty step in here. When you're done, you can add any color corrections and render. And you can take a shot that is kind of plain and turn it into something completely magical looking. If you have any questions, please go to www.boriseffects.com, where you can find forums, free training, and so much more